guys, how you doing?
Good.
Deja vu.
Sorry to have to do this once over again. Look, this is Packers versus Texan preamble. We got everybody. We got John and Mike, myself. John, it's so happy to see you. I have the slide deck. The slide deck is, I'm just going to go through what it is that we're going to cover. And of course, this week is the week that we actually picked up a new kicker. And it turns out that we've no more.
See ya.
Nervous Man is now gone.
Bye-bye.
So he's waived on Tuesday and has yet to have another team.
Plenty of opportunities.
Pick him up. He's out there.
He's got a hell of a leg. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a very good aim.
I think what he should do is he should look for a sport where it doesn't matter where the ball goes.
Right.
You just kick it really hard, and then wherever it goes, and that's it.
If he were a golfer, he would need really wide fairways. So that might not work for him.
Yeah. Don't kick the golf ball to improve your game. Let's Go Brandon is our new kicker for the Packers. A lot of news about this guy. He is
controversial.
Yes.
Allegedly been involved in a little shenanigans. It's always questions like, why was he available? And it turns out that he's kind of on the fringe.
Allegedly, of course. But we do like that a third of his life is in the NFL. All that experience.
And even though he's 33 years old, adding him to the roster didn't materially change the youngness of the Packer roster.
Amazing.
We got rid of 21, 22, 23-year-old Nervous Man and added 33-year-old Let's Go Brandon. And
Let's Go B.
The Packers is not as young as it was Monday, but Tuesday it's still the youngest in the NFL.
We've got that in our pocket.
Now, it's funny. Like, why is that a stat?
What? Pending court cases? Or
No, like, why is youngness important?
Gotcha.
I could see where, say you're chess prodigy, right? And you're 7 years old and you become a grandmaster. The thing that they look at is, oh, he's only 7 years old. That means if we look at that chart, that graph, he is going to become the super master of forever. I guess it's implied that if you have the youngest roster in the NFL, that means all lines are going up.
The potential for solid domination for years to come is there, I think.
Is it one of the things that you try to do when you're a GM is to have the youngest roster? It's definitely not the Jets' way.
Not at all.
The Jets are kind of going the opposite direction. They keep adding years to their roster. I just think it's interesting that it's a stat. And people say, "Oh, we're the youngest roster, or the second youngest roster." Let's write a story.
It's win-win though. But if you start losing, you can always, the excuse is built in. They're the youngest team. Or if you start drafting young and start winning, genius. So both, it's win-win or lose-lose.
If you look at the totality of the drafts, if you have the youngest roster, that means the drafts that you had 4 or 5 years ago weren't really that good.
Ooh,
right?
good point. Good point.
Those guys are all gone now. Now you've replaced them with guys that are first-tier players.
Or they were too good that they demanded heavy-duty contracts and you couldn't afford them.
Good spin, John. So next year it's going to be a choice between Watson. I thought it was Dobbs.
Maybe it is.
Doubts.
No doubt.
Dobbs.
Leaving no doubt.
It's important to know that since we're a cutting-edge podcast, that we are using AI technology to help us understand important concepts. And here, the concept that I focus on this week, using visual aids from Copilot from Microsoft, is what allegedly really happened on the plane with Let's Go Brandon. The first thing I want to do is he played for the Jags last year, and it was the Jags game. So I started off with just having a picture of him flying home on a jet, being happy, being excited. He's got an 8-hour flight on a jet. This is what I got out of Copilot. It says, "Yep, there is a happy guy," but he wasn't drunk enough. So I wanted to give him something to drink. So
it's a long flight.
He doesn't have to worry about showing up tomorrow to work. So allegedly that he was a little drunk at the time when these alleged things allegedly happened.
Purported to happen.
Yeah. I told Copilot that I wanted him to look a little bit more tipsy and have some in-flight peanuts. And so this is what I got from Copilot. And when I get peanuts, it always comes in that small bag that you can barely open. You get maybe 5 peanuts in it. He's got like a half a cup.
That's
nice.
Deserves it.
So I added a stewardess. I actually said I add Copilot to add 2 stewardess, but they just gave me 1. And then I was noticing that they also included more additional cans and the can on his shoulder and stuff. I thought, so thank you, Copilot.
Very realistic.
And then I wanted to have more stains on his shirt. I didn't think it looked like he was drunk enough without having more stains. So I asked them to put little spaghetti stains on there. And this is Copilot going to town.
Wow.
This is it took about a good 15 seconds for Copilot to give me this image.
That's quite a meal, though. Italian fare there on the flight.
I like the fact that he got the middle row seat.
Oh, perfect.
I mean, they gave the kicker the middle chair with the table.
Yeah. He's so important to the team. He's the star.
Well, and I like also that Copilot put peanuts on the all over the floor. Then Copilot was getting in on the action. It was giving me ideas. It's like I was just kind of adding to it, and then all of a sudden these little buttons show up that says, "Oh, maybe add this," and it suggested stewardesses in bikinis to join the fun.
Easy,
and
Copilot.
All you had to do is click the button.
I'm thinking he looks a little bit like Jay Cutler, who recently got busted for a DUI.
Interesting. Thank you, Mike. I was not aware of that. Is that pending also? Alleged?
He got pulled over in Franklin, Tennessee. He rear-ended another driver and then tried to sneak away.
Leaving the scene of the crime.
Did he say he was a football player?
I don't know that he did, but I do know that there were very entertaining comments on that news story about things like, he still can't get away from a good defense. The police intercepted him.
Jay Cutler was certainly a great Green Bay Packer.
Yes. There's another suggestion by Copilot was stewardess dancing in the aisles.
With those pants that he's wearing, those space is this a SpaceX flight?
The very last person in the image is demonstrating it is a zero gravity flight, so I do think it's SpaceX.
Shortly before the fireball.
I wasn't sure what the suggestion was this, but I wanted a "Let's Go Brandon" button on the jersey, and the Copilot wouldn't do it. So the only thing that they would do is put a B on his shoulder, so he's got a little embroidered B. At that point, Copilot stopped offering suggestions and told me that I had used my daily allotment of compute power. So I was pretty much stuck at that point. So that was an alleged one view of what might have happened based on what all my heavy research I've done on this whole thing to just try to put together something using AI as my guide.
I don't know for sure, but I'm going to say that was 94% accurate.
AI is sort of one of these things that if you don't use it, you're not with it at all. You're kind of lost.
Right.
All right.
We clearly are very cutting edge on the tech, Rob, and the social media, especially going with the all caps on these slides.
Yeah.
That's
gets people's attention.
Light years away ahead of me.
All right. So this point, I'm going to have something called Quick Takes. So Quick Takes is where I am going to show you a player, and I just want to know how you feel they're going to do in this game, how you feel about them so far this season, and anything else that you might add about that player, just to help people kind of get our view of how we feel about some of these players. The first player I have in here is Luke Van Ness. And so he's had 153 snaps so far, played in every game, 13 tackles, and 1 sack. So what do you think?
He's on the board with 1 sack.
Right.
He's on pace. 0. He's on pace to beat that total in 2023.
I think to feel better about making sure that you're not regressing, you should have a sack today or tomorrow. I'm pretty much counting on that.
Yep. CJ Stroud.
Otherwise, he becomes Fluke Van Mess.
Fluke. And it's a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, we don't want a fluke.
But he's young.
He's the only. That's one thing that's contributing to the roster is that he's a young player, and so he pushes that age number down for the Packers.
That's good for that stat.
Supposed to replace Preston Smith. So these are the years that he's learning his craft. All right, and we got Eric Jokes. Eric Jokes, again, somebody who's been around for a couple of years. He's probably right at about the average for the Packers. So he's had 281 snaps, and then here's the stat that you have to focus on is 31 targets, 21 completions. Over a third of the time that you throw it to the receiver that he's covering, he's going to catch it.
Do you think opposing quarterbacks are stoked when they see jokes on their receiver.
They can poke around with that idea.
Yeah.
So that's through 6 games, and he's lost a couple. He's actually Jair's backup.
Yeah.
So Jair's still on the injured report. Yeah.
Who? Yeah, just kidding.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Jair. Yeah.
I've heard of him.
It's probably the third highest player on the team right now. So
Yeah.
third or fourth, up there.
Yeah.
But it seems like the more you get played, unless you're a quarterback, I guess, the more you get paid, the less you have to play. So just Texas stats, John. This is what we have to. This is what we're up against.
Wow.
I threw this together. I just wanted to say the CJ route is the real deal. They are a team that will beat us if we're not careful. I actually think they probably are. They have a good shot. Probably of the teams that we played in the last couple of weeks. This is probably one of the tougher teams. I mean, I think Minnesota. Do you think Minnesota is as good as they think they are?
I don't think so, but yet they're still 5-0, and
they beat us, right?
And yeah, good question. I think we're going to do well against the Texans. I'm expecting a lot. I think we're going to run all over them.
The defensive line is really good, and their one guy has got 5.5 sacks, so he's doing fairly well. They have a safety that's playing very well. He's got 2 interceptions, not Xavier numbers, but
true,
respectable.
True.
Defensive backs in general are kind of hurting, and I think if that's one of the strengths the Packers have is that they have wide receivers that pretty much can match up with any defensive set of defensive backs, and somebody will be open.
I think you're right. We have a nice variety of wide receivers. So, pick your poison when you're trying to cover the Packers receivers.
So Stefon Diggs, former Viking, former Bill.
Yep.
He was at one time considered one of the premier receivers, and he probably still is. I think he can still play. Yeah. He just hasn't I
think he's the Randall Cobb of the Texans, I think.
Oh, okay. So the guy that sometimes shows up,
yeah,
and is good enough to make the team.
He's gonna show the younger receivers what going over the middle means, and making that tough catch.
Does he have the potential to have a 100-yard receiving game?
I'm gonna say no.
All right. So, anything else about the game that you're worried about, thinking about? I don't have any worries at all. I just know it'll happen. All right. Mike is gone.
All right.
So let's end it. And
all right.
Thank you very much. We'll try to meet up again after the game and see how it goes.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. See you
later.